Today I will start from a very brief introduction to some basic facts and definition of poverty reduction in China. Then focus on analyzing Chinese approach, which has been used to eliminate extreme poverty in the past 4 decades. Then I will analyze the lessons which I think can be shared with other countries, apart from some unique issues. Lastly, I will have very brief forward-looking at the possible strategy for poverty reduction in China in the coming years. Before I move to the formal discussion, I think I need to introduce a few things. One thing I need to mention when talk about poverty in China, poverty is usually refers to rural poverty. This not mean there's no poverty at all in the cities, just because from the very beginning in the economic reform in early 1980s, more than 90% of the poor population were living in the rural areas. So that time, the strategies and the policies for poverty reduction in China had been mainly confined to rural poverty. I think this one important phenomenon I need to mention. Secondly, is about the deflation. In China, actually, we have been using the multi-dimension.
吴老师，我帮你放 PPT 吧。
我自己来吧。我估计你可能那个，multi-dimension poverty has been used to define poverty. In the one sense, the most recent official poverty line was defined as RMB 2,300 yuan in 2010 price. It was about 2.3 US dollars PPP at 2011 PPP. Actually, let's put it simply, the official income-based poverty line in China was about 120%, as high as the extreme poverty defined by the World Bank and international communities. In the ASEAN, in addition to the income-based poverty, making access to the basic public services, mainly including compulsory education, basic healthcare, and safe housing, has been taken as important in basis. Because in the history of the modern China, for most of the time since the foundation of the People's Republic of China in 1949, most of the time China had been a extensively poor country. Before 1986, actually there had been any special programs or policies made for poverty issues, just because all the majority of people in the country had been poor. So there's no need to set up any special policies for the poor. Since 1986, Chinese government has formulated its first nationwide planning for poverty elevation. Then from 1994, Chinese government had formulated 3 continuous programs for poverty alleviation. That was from the programs for 1994 to year 2000, and followed by the programs for 2001 to 2010, then the 2011 to 2020. In the past 4 decades, China has made very amazing achievements in poverty reduction. By the official program I just mentioned, the number of poor population in China has reduced from 770 million in 1980 down to dynamically near 0 in year 2020. By the 1.9 PVP per day that was defined by the World Bank as for the extreme poverty, the number of poor population in China has been reduced from 870 million in 1981 to 10 million in 2015. So this means China has reduced its number of poor population within 40 years to more than 800 million. This was the record-breaking achievements in the history of poverty reduction in the world. Since 1982, since 1820. As a result of the achievements made in poverty reduction, the number of the percentage of poor population living in poverty has reduced from 96% in 1980 to almost 0 in the year 2020. So this means China has already achieved the target set for Sustainable Development Goal for the extreme poverty by 2030. So this means China has achieved the goal for eliminating the extreme poverty 10 years ahead of the schedule. The international community has recognized the contribution of China made to the poverty reduction in the world, but it's more important, I think, is to understand how China have done to eliminate extreme poverty. It's very difficult to say in a few words or a few sentences what the key approach or any single approach has been used to reduce poverty in China. I think in general, China has used the integrated approach to reduce poverty. Among these integrated approaches, at least it involves 4 approaches. One is to create more employment and income generation opportunities through sustained and inclusive economic growth. Secondly, is to improve the capabilities and function of all the people, in particular the poor, through improving the access to social services and the social safety nets. And thirdly is to increase the development capacity of the people's well-being of the poor regions by taking the development-oriented poverty reduction interventions. And the fourth is to increase the effectiveness of intervention in eliminating extreme poverty through targeted poverty reduction approach. Next time, I will elaborate these four approaches in detail. So when talk about the poverty reduction, I think the first fact coming to my mind is the role of sustainable economic growth. So it was very clear to see the relationship between economic growth and poverty reduction in the past 4 decades. Because the sustained economic growth make contribution to poverty reduction by different means, for example, creating jobs, increased demands for agricultural products, and increasing the physical capacity for the programs. The relationship between economic growth and poverty reduction has been presented in the table 1 by the different periods. In average, from 1978 to 2019. Sorry, my wait a moment. I need maybe I need to release. Sorry, I'm very sorry. The PPT seems was not uploaded in the just now. So I just okay. Let's just go back to the figures, because figures is more difficult to read. This table shows the correlation between economic growth and poverty reduction in the past 4 decades. In average, the number of poor population in China has been reduced 18.7 million every year from 1978 to 2019. In the same time, the growth rate of per capita GDP has been in the rate of 8.3%. So we can see very strong positive correlationship between the economic growth and the poverty reduction. So I present the growth incidence curve, which was based on the accumulated distribution curve to show the annually growth rate of per capita income of the different income groups. In average, the rural residents has increased the income from 1980 to 2012 by 7.5%. This is 7.5%. Actually, that's for the national average. During this period, the bottom 20%, actually the poorest 20% poor households, has also increased the income annually by 4.5%. And the bottom 80%, which was actually the poor, real poor population in China in 1980s, has increased the income by 6.8%. So this figure actually shows the very important trend of income growth of the rural residents from 1980 to 2012. Why I only update the figure to 2012, just because after 2013, the National Statistics Bureau has modified its household service system. So the definition of income has been modified after 2013. So it just for the comparable, I just present the growth rate of the per capita income for rural residents from 1980 to 2012. I think more important to look at the relationship between economic growth and the poverty reduction is not only the growth rate impact on the poverty reduction, but how the growth has been achieved or the growth pattern. In general, from our research, it was found the growth pattern in China in the past 4 decades, in general, can be defined as a poor growth pattern based on following 5 aspects. One is agriculture has been growing with a quite high rate from 1978 to 2019. That annual growth rate was 4%. Secondly, the economic growth was based on the development of labor-intensive economy through fast industrialization and urbanization. The labor-intensive economy development was directly linked to the poverty reduction through the employment. From 1978 to 2019, the off-farm employment had increased about 4 times. The important is not only the size of employment in the increase in the past 4 decades, but also the distribution of the off-farm income. It was found the poor people, in particular the bottom 20% people, can proportionally benefit from the growth of off-farm opportunity. For example, the bottom 20% households had the income share from off-farm income increasing from 26% in 2002 to 6% in 2020. The third one is to achieve the economic growth through sustained and extensive development in physical infrastructure. This is reflected, I mean, the development in infrastructure was reflected not only is the relationship to the economic growth, but also is a direct linkage to poverty reduction. For example, the construction sector in average contribute 8% of the total employment of the country, but about 20% of the employment of the poor households was from construction sector. Another feature of the growth pattern is the contribution of small and micro enterprises. From 1992 to 2018, the small and micro enterprises has contributed 342 million jobs to the countries. economic growth. The SMEs has more direct effects on the income and the employment of the poor and the low income households. Another important feature of the growth pattern is to facilitate economic growth through reducing interregional disparity, because the uneven development pattern in China in the history, China has been a very poor western regions, and while the eastern regions has been relatively rich. In the same time, about 50% of the poor population has been living in the West. So in this regard, Chinese government has proposed the West development strategy to push the development of social and economic in the West regions. In the same time, the government has also helped the enterprises and the civil organizations in the eastern regions to build up partnership with the Western partnership or counterpart for poverty reduction to improve the capacity for development in the Western regions. So with this new strategy for reducing interregional disparity, the gap of GDP per capita between the West and the East regions has been reduced after the launch of the strategy. The second approach is to improve the access of the people to social services and the social security. In China has tried the specific approach to address this issue by combining the universal approach and the targeting approach. So, for example, in education, the nationwide, the free universal compulsory education has been established to improve the access and affordability of the people. In the same time, special support can be made to help the poor to improve the accessibility and to reduce the cost and the affordability. This approach has been employed to improve the medical services, and in the perspective of social security, China has made a package of efforts to address the vulnerability of the poor. So in this regard, a package of social security system or schemes has been established. For example, we have developed the rural minimum living allowance scheme to provide living allowance for the people whose income below the threshold. And we also have developed the social endowment insurance scheme for the rural and urban residents, and some special programs to support the disabled poor. And some special programs can be developed to supporting the aged and orphans without family support, and also some direct assistance and the relief programs has been in work for the people in need. The set approach to poverty reduction, it was called development-oriented poverty reduction. Actually, by the names, it was the interventions of Chinese characteristics, because the poverty, I mean, the distribution of poor population in China had been geographically relatively concentrated in some poor areas. So from 1986, the general strategy of poverty reduction has been to improve the capacity of the poor and the poor areas by taking the specific interventions. So these development-oriented poverty reduction interventions impose three major features. One is focused on raising the capacity of the poor and the poor areas. Secondly, all the poverty reduction interventions are targeting at poor areas, like poor villages and the poor counties. Thirdly, most interventions used for poverty reduction are comprehensive interventions. In general, the objective of development-oriented poverty reduction intervention is to improve the development environment of the poor areas by making favorable policies for the poor areas. These policies are of broad calculation, including the fiscal policies, taxation, monetary policies, land use, human resources, and so on. Under the development-oriented poverty reduction in the interventions framework, there have some major interventions. I just mentioned a few most important interventions, including improving the physical and the social infrastructures in the poor areas, to provide support for income generation activities, and to provide assistance for the poor laborers to finding jobs in the cities or in the bed of rural areas. And also, Chinese government has also make planning to reset the poor households who are living in the remote and ecologically fragile areas, because the development and the poverty reduction in these areas usually are very economically costly and also very difficult to find opportunities to escape from poverty. From the official or academic research about the results of development-oriented poverty interventions, so these interventions can achieve very good performance for the different periods. For example, the income gap between the poor areas and the national average has been reduced in the different period, and the public services in the poor counties has been largely improved after the interventions of development-oriented poverty reduction framework. And of the fourth approach to poverty reduction, which was formally started in 2013, targeted poverty reduction actually is not new for the poverty reduction. I mean, in the literature of poverty reduction, but the targeted poverty reduction used in China, in particular, after 2013, was totally different, defined from the previous used terms for the targeted poverty reduction. Previously, targeted poverty reduction is only the method or one measurement scheme to target the resources at the desired beneficiaries at the project level. But in China, the targeted poverty reduction is not the only one method or management scheme at the project level. It has become a national strategy to address the extreme poverty for the whole country by 2020. So the targeted poverty reduction strategy was set to address issues related to eliminating extreme poverty by 2020. So the strategies including identification of the real poor in the whole country and the causes of poverty, to planning the projects and activities or for all the poor, to organize the funds delivering implementation, and to make evaluation of outcome of poverty reduction. So this is a very tough challenge for poverty reduction in a country like China. When the targeted poverty reduction was proposed in 2013, China still have 90 million poor population. So it's very, very difficult to take the targeted approach to address the issues for poverty reduction. So in order to help all the poor households to escape from poverty by year 2020, so a lot of innovation has been made to modify the strategies and the management for poverty reduction. So a package of institutional arrangements, ways for poverty reduction, management, and so on, has been developed to address the issue. Here I just mentioned a few most important issues which I think can be shared with other countries. One is to develop and update the management information system of the real poor households and the villagers. It's very difficult to identify the real poor, even for a project. It's much more complicated and difficult to identify all the eligible poor for in a country like China. In this regard, China has tried different innovative ways to find the solutions to identifying the eligible poor. This kind of innovation are mainly in the indicators or ways for collecting information is to compare the sources of income and multiply observable well-being indicators. by inviting the community participation to identify the poor households. Secondly is to establish open and accountable procedure and arrangements to reduce the errors. So through this management information system of the real poor, the information on the poor households had been collected and put in the nationwide database. A second issue is to develop a new governance to guarantee the effective implementation of the new strategy. It's difficult to target at the poor households and deliver the resources to the real poor at the project level, but it's of course is more difficult to a country. So the governance issue has become the big challenge in the very beginning for China when the targeted poverty reduction strategy was initiated. So in this regard, three most important issues have been addressed. One is to clearly identify the responsibility of the government at different levels and the 9 departments. Secondly is to identify the responsibility and the accountability to ensure government's commitment to poverty reduction. Actually, is more in more specific terms. A strict contract has been signed between the upper government with the lower government to ensure that task for poverty reduction can be achieved. And more important is to assign sufficient social works from the country as a whole to assist with the poverty reduction in the communities, to solve the last mile issues for the governance for poverty reduction. Every year, more than 700,000 social works have been working in the poor villages. And also, more rigorous and reliable monitoring evaluation has been reduced to ensure the reliable evaluation of outcomes. Oh, sorry. And the most important, the most difficult challenge for the targeted poverty reduction strategy at the national level is to find case-by-case solutions to the each poor household, because the causes of poverty have been different. The resources available are different. So it's necessary to figure out specific solutions to reduce poverty for each household. So it involves a lot of innovations has been made to address the case-by-case intervention. Okay, the third issue I'd like to share with you is about lessons which I think can be shared with other countries. Of course, both economic growth and the poverty reduction made in China has very close linkage with a unique systems, like a unique political settings, is a huge population and a huge land area size, diversity of the resources, as well as the Confucius culture. But I think, in addition to these unique factors, there must have been some lessons in common which can be shared with other countries. I'm not sure how many lessons on poverty reduction in China can be elected to, but I try to highlight a few lessons which I think can be shared with other countries. So the first and maybe the most important lesson I'd like to share with you is to decide and adjust the strategy and the policies for poverty reduction according to own national and local conditions. I think this might be, in some sense, is the most important lesson. China has chosen their own strategies and the development path to develop and also selected its own strategy and ways for poverty reduction. And in the process of poverty reduction, the ways and the policies of poverty reduction have been modified according to the changing of the nature of poverty and the capacity of funding for the poverty reduction programs. So it's very important to adapt the strategy and policies and ways for poverty reduction to own state and local context. And secondly, it's important to incorporate poverty reduction into the country's long-term development plan, because poverty reduction is not a simple policy task. It requires interrelated and joint efforts. So it's important to incorporate poverty reduction goals and tasks into long-term and continuous planning for the national development. In this way, the national development can provide further support for poverty reduction. And thirdly, inclusive development is important to make the development results distribution in favor of the poor. In particular, when the number of poor population has been bigger, so it's necessary to take inclusive development to combine the poverty reduction and development in the process of development. And fourthly, targeted poverty interventions is useful to address the specific needs and issues of each poor household and individual in poverty reduction. because the targeted poverty interventions can improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of the interventions for poverty reduction. And fifthly, I would like to recommend to give priority in poverty reduction to the capacity building for the poor. Because of the difference of the causes and the nature of poverty in different countries, so it's important to choose reasonable solutions to poverty reduction. But in general, it's important to combine the solution for supporting income generation with raising the capacity and the incentive for escaping from poverty. In China, the poverty reduction has taken into account the capacity building efforts, like assisting the poor to raise the capacity, help the poor to remove the barriers to poverty reductions, and to give priority to take productive measures when possible. And the last lesson I'd like to share with you is to try to involve government, private sector, and the non-government organizations in the process of poverty reduction. It's important to give full play of the roles of government, private sector, and the social sectors according to the lessons learned from China. Of course, different countries might have different social and political structure, but government, private sector, and the non-government organizations should work together to reduce poverty. Government may play important roles in the leadership, mobilization of resources, coordination and supervision in poverty reduction. And the private sector, of course, can make larger contribution to poverty reduction by creating jobs, taxes. In addition, the private sector can also provide direct assistance. In China, the private sector has been involved in poverty reduction by involved in some specific programs to provide assistance to the poor villagers and to take the public-private partnership for poverty reduction. And the civil organization, I must mention its role in poverty reduction in China. I know civil organization had been relatively weak in China, but when poverty reduction is concerned, civil organization has been played important roles in the social mobilization and the innovation of poverty reduction ways. For example, the microcredit and the participatory poverty elevation approach, these two important approaches to poverty reduction were firstly introduced by non-government organizations and finally accepted by the government and have been replicated in the national wide. Okay, the last issue I'd like to talk about is very believe forward-looking as a strategy for poverty reduction in China in the future. In this February, Chinese government has officially announced the end elimination of the extreme poverty. So it means the extreme poverty has been dynamically eliminated in the country. This does not mean there's no more poverty in the country, just because Chinese government has established a effective and dynamic mechanism to track and deal with the newly identified poor households. So it was expected the priority of poverty reduction in China is going to changing in the coming years. So the priority of poverty reduction in the country will be to reduce relative poverty, mainly to reduce the rural-urban disparity, to the income inequality of people, and to help most of the low-income groups growing up to be in the middle class. It was announced by the central government by year 2050, the country as a whole will achieve the goal of all-round development of the people and the common prosperity for all people. Of course, this is a very ambitious goal for a country of 1.4 billion people. So there can be seen many challenges ahead. I think the major challenges for changing the strategy for poverty reduction in the future are mainly from the uncertainty in successful transformation of development model. Because China has changing, or at least is going to changing the development model from investment or resources driven development to innovation based, more shareable and more environmental friendly development. So it involves a lot of uncertainty in the transformation of development model. Of course, there are some other risks which might not foreseeable or controllable at home and abroad. Okay, okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. My lecture has finished. Okay, Xiang Hui.
Okay, thank you, Professor Wu. Thank you very much for your insightful and thought-provoking talk. Actually, this question is very important, not only in China, but it's very important as well in the whole world. People the poverty will prevent people with fundamental life or with dignity, and that's not the question for people themselves. That's the reason why the government and the public sector should do something for them. Okay, now let's have some time to reply the questions in the chat. Professor Wu, maybe you could open the chat.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. So I start with which one is the comes first?
I think the Jasper have a question about the Afghanistan.
Okay. Okay, a moment, please.
The Jasper said, today the Global Times is having an article on how China is securing trade to Afghanistan, helping to slow the flow of poverty in Afghanistan. I want to ask, do you foresee any to midterm scenario that may change the poverty level of Afghanistan?
Yeah, I think the Afghanistan's issue, including poverty reduction, is a little bit special compared with other countries. I think it is more important for Afghanistan to restore the social and the country stability. I think this might be the most important task for the country, and also important is to gradually to restore the economic order, because majority of the poor population in Afghanistan is also living in the rural areas. So if the external, I mean the developmental assistance can be provided direct to help the poor farmers to restore its order for production and economic activities, which might be very useful for the country. Of course, the trade with other countries, including the labor countries like China, is of course is important. It is important factor to assist the Afghanistan to reduce poverty, but because a lot of things are undecided, including the transportation, logistics, and so on. So I think it takes time to give full play of the laws of trade in reduce poverty. Yes, because Afghanistan is really very different. So my response is to restore the stability first, and try to restore the economic and production order in the rural areas, and to improve the trade terms through the international joint efforts. Yeah. Okay. And
thank you. And the second question is from my colleague. He's a legal scholar. He wants to how to maintain the sustainability of capacity building at the level of legal system in land use a very theoretical question. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, the land use policy has become more and more important policy for poverty reduction in China. In the past, the land use was mainly price growth of dividends from the land use shares. It means the poor farmers might lend the land to the cooperatives or big farms to earn the shares. But in the past few years, the government has worked out some specific policy to make the government in the poor areas to changing the agricultural land for long agricultural land use. So these gets assistance. The local government in the poor areas gets raised more than 60 billion RMB. Of course, this is not a very specific benefits for the poor households themselves. It's much more important for the investment and the development for the poor areas. So in the future, I think the more important is to changing the land league system, including to give more liberty for the poor to changing the land for long agriculture use by the farmers themselves. In this case, the farmers can have more income from from property like land. Yeah. Okay.
The next question is from Ladislava, another colleague in China.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Oh. He wants to know, how could you assess a relationship between the policy focused on eradicating poverty and the BRI, the 一带一路? Do you think that the anti-poverty fight is one of the fundamentals of the China's global initiative and one of the crucial tools of it?
Yes, yes. I think actually there is a close relationship between the policies for poverty reduction and the Belt and Road Initiative for both China and for the related countries, because the policies for poverty reduction, I mean, in China can be partly borrowed to some project in the Belt and Road Initiative countries. For example, some infrastructure or industry projects can be complemented by some pilot projects on poverty reduction. I think this has been done in some countries. It means that when an infrastructure or industry project, I mean the large project has been planned, a small project, pilot project for poverty reduction can be included in the total project. And secondly, this also is a practice. It's both the Chinese government and the member countries of the Belt and Roads has tried to work together to provide training on poverty reduction for the administrative staffs and the concerned people. So I think there are many opportunities to make cooperation between China and the other member countries in the poverty reduction. Is not only in the infrastructure aspect, but also in the knowledge and the policy dialogue. So there are rooms for both the academic cycle and the government to share the knowledges and the policy solutions to poverty reduction in the Belt and the Road initiative concerned areas and the countries. Yeah. So I look forward to more achievements met in these areas, because only if the member countries can have better performance in development and poverty reduction, I think the Belt and the Road initiative can be better understood and accepted by the people concerned. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Because of the time limitation, we have the last question. My friend Chen Rurong shared an interesting example in the practice of alleviation work poverty in China. She said her father is a member of the poverty alleviation work, and his father told maybe one of the reasons that people in poverty is because of the mind question. The people, based on my understanding, is because they are lazy in mind, and that lead to they are lazy in practice. Or not just not lazy, but in mind. So that mind gap lead to the people have the strong intention to make money and then make a living. So how do you any comment to the example that people, one of the reasons they are in poor just because they have the strong intention to make money and to change the poverty, the poor status?
Yeah, it's true in some remote areas, in particular the remote poor areas where the minority, some minority people live. They have different ways of thinking on the poverty or development. So the perception about the West, about development are different. So I think this had been the case in the past, but after many open and continuous efforts on poverty reduction, by both government and non-government, and so there are many changes to those perceptions and the ideas or philosophies or terms about development and the West. I think this is a issue involve a change of a process. It involves time. Because the perceptions and ideas and the norms of these people on development that was had been rooted in the traditional lives. So with the opening of the village and the people to the outside, they might have chance to learn how the people look at what. So I think of course, I must point out is not necessary to changing the ideas or the perception of the local people, because this is not a moral issue. So, but if the modernization is a package to be pursued, I think it's very important to start from demonstration. It means in a village, you can encourage one or two folk households have a similar situation to majority to start some demonstration projects or works to show how the lives, the behaviors and the customs for living or for looking at external world changing. So take time to let local people to have their own judgment. So actually, I think I know many these case or stories in the remote areas in the southwest regions, in the upland, or and also in the Hainan and so on. So I think the demonstration is very good starting step, and also it's need to give the young people of this households to look at the external world. For example, to give more students to go to school, to have mid school or higher education, and to find job in the cities. So in this way, this young generation might have learned new knowledge, new customs, and new ideas. So if this second idea is to education the young generation, to let the young generation to help the parents' generation to changing the ideas. Of course, and also we can try some other ways. Anyway, I think that it is a long process to changing the perceptions and the behaviors of the traditional people. Yeah. So, but I personally, I'm confident it's possible to have these people to adapt to the modern society. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
Thank you.
it seems there's no more No more questions?
No questions.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, Professor Wu. Thank you again for your very important and insightful sharing with colleagues in Europe. And thank you as well for my colleagues in Europe and friends to participate to this lecture. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you next lecture. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.